Welcome to Kilroy's Outlaws and Legends Behind the Music with your host, multi-award-winning music producer, Eddie Kilroy. And now, here's your host, Eddie Kilroy.
Hey, how are you? Welcome to another edition of Kilroy's Outlaws, Legends, and Behind the Music. Wow, I'll tell you what, this is going to be a dandy. I'm going to have a lot of fun doing this because it's interesting to me to retrace some of my background with this particular guy that I'm going to talk about today. Everybody's favorite, or most everybody, if it's not your favorite, should be. I'm talking about Hank Williams Jr. I go back so far with Hank Jr., so I'm going to have to interject a little bit of Kilroy into this deal for you to make sense out of it. This show is not talking about Kilroy, okay? This particular artist, I need to tell you how it all got started. Most of you know that have kept up with the show, the podcast, that I come from a little town in Texas called Liberty. Made my way to Nashville, Tennessee. Had $40 in my pocket when I got there. No job, no anything, but was blessed by the Lord that the number one radio station in Nashville was WKDA. And I had a background in radio that was rather impressive, working in bigger markets than Nashville. It so happened that the radio station there, the big one, Top 40, they needed a morning disc jockey. Wow! I get a job the second day I'm in Nashville and go to work. That station was owned by a guy by the name of Jack Stapp. Wonderful guy, known and loved by everyone in the music industry because prior to buying that radio station, Jack was general manager of the Grand Ole Opry. So he knew everybody and everybody knew him. Well, I'd only been there for a number of months. I don't remember, 4 or 5 months or so. And Jack said, "We're going out to Hank Williams' house tomorrow night." And I said, "Really?" And, of course, Hank was dead then. And he said, "Yes, Audrey, Hank's widow, is having a coming out party for Hank Williams Jr., and we've been invited out there, along with, a lot of other people from the industry." So we went out there, and it was behind the house at the swimming pool. And that was Hank Williams' old house where Hank lived. Kind of nowadays a normal-looking brick home that you'd find in a middle-class subdivision somewhere, but it was on Franklin Road, very nice area. And it had a few acres, and there was a pool, like I said, swimming pool behind it. So Audrey was introducing her son, Hank Williams Jr., to the music industry. And she had a band out there with Hank Jr., and he played and he sang, and I met him. He was very shy at that particular time. He changed a lot, but he was, I don't know, I was probably in 1963 maybe, somewhere back in there. And Junior was, I guess, 10, 11, 12, I really don't know, but he was just a young boy. And he would sing his dad's songs. It sounded a lot like his dad, because he listened to the records a million times. Audrey she was forming and putting together her meal ticket for the future, which would be Hank Williams Jr. So Jr. performed, which incidentally I'll have to work hard not to refer to him as Junior, because that's why we called him forever until one day he said, I don't want to be Junior anymore, I just want to be Hank. So okay, talking about Hank. She unveiled Hank to the world, and this was going to be her future. And she pushed him hard, and she worked hard, and she overworked him really. He was thrown into he was thrown into the deep end of a swimming pool. Is the way I put it. Is the only analogy that I can come up with. It's other like, here you are, you're going to be a great entertainer. Get in the pool and be a great entertainer. And he did, but he was pushed into it and coached and encouraged by his mother, Audrey. So that's how it all started, and that's how I met him first. That was the first time I'd ever met Hank. Interestingly enough, in front of that house, I'm going to be telling you and hopping from one thing to the other as it kind of comes to mind, so bear with me. At that particular home, Junior had there you go again, Hank Jr. had a Civil War cannon. Even at that young age, he was a Civil War buff. He could tell you every battle, how many people in the Confederacy were in that battle, how many died. You know, it was just amazing. Like for a guy like 13 years old, 14 years old, to have that cyclopedic mind on the Civil War. And he had a Civil War cannon, not a playlight deal. It was a real deal. Had it in the front yard. Yep. And he would load that thing up at 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock in the morning, and he would load it up. Wouldn't have a cannonball in it, but it'd have a load of powder, and it would make a huge noise. He'd shoot that thing off, and I've said this before to some of you folks out there, and it would put out all the lights, and those that it didn't put out, they came on all up and down that area. And the governor's mansion was only about a block down there off of Franklin Road. And the police would come out and say, "Now, Hank, don't be shooting that cannon off at all, but certainly not in the middle of the morning and night here." And he said, "All right, officer," and he wouldn't do it till the next week probably, but he was quite a character and a wild kid. He did not have a lot of guidance. Audrey was very busy being Audrey, grooming him, as I said, to be her meal ticket from then on. And she worked the young man very, very hard. As time progressed, and my career there finally got to why I went there to start with, that was to be in the record industry. And I had a couple of jobs as a promotion manager for a couple of companies, and then I landed a national promotion job with MGM Records, which was a big deal for me. Okay, I'm a young guy moving up in the industry or trying to. Maybe I was 25 at the time, and that was really young to be a national promotion man and have like 30 or 40 guys that were in their 30s or 40s working under you. That was a problem, but it worked out good. Well, they put a single out. Hank had a lot of records out. He had so many iconic records that it's unbelievable. But he had a record out called "Standing in the Shadows," and I went on to promote that record and take it to top 5 in the United States. So in the Billboard's Hot 100. So it was a big record. That was the one that cracked him open. Well, in doing so, I was on the bus a lot and traveling with Hank, and with his mother Audrey was on the bus along with the band, typical tour bus. And every time we were in a city on that tour, or on several tours really, I would go to the radio stations, sometimes taking Hank with me, and take his records and encourage them to play this record. And that's what promotion people do in the record industry, and that's how you get to hear them. Somebody's taking them to the radio station and saying, "You really need to be playing this record." So we were out several tours, and Hank Jr. wanted a horse, and I found him a horse through a cutting horse trainer from Shawnee, Oklahoma, who ironically lived about 5 miles from my place in Tennessee, which I had a small farm there. First place I ever bought was, incidentally, I bought from an old country singer from by the name of Charlie Lubin from the Lubin Brothers. Anyway, we got Hank a horse. He loved horses. He loved to ride, and he would come out. So one day, I got a call from Hank, and he said, this was before he moved in, and he stayed with me for a number of months. And he said, "Hey, Audrey," well, he didn't call her Audrey. He didn't have a close relationship with Audrey. He referred to her as the big A or she. I never did hear him call Audrey mother, mom, mama, anything. It was either the big A or she, which he pretty much governed his whole life, of course. And he said, "Mother wants to ride, and she's coming out with me today." And I said, "Hank, we don't have anything for her to ride." I had a bulldogging horse, and people call it steer wrestling now. And I had my roping horse. And then his horse, which really was not a trail horse, and his mother and this other lady who was an ex-lady wrestler, the horses were not suitable for them, in other words. Well, you had to cross a creek called Caney Fork Creek out in Williamson County, Tennessee, to get over into my place. And I looked out the window and I see Hank's very first car, which was a gold Buick Riviera, crossing the bridge. And I saw people in it, and I didn't think anything about it. Well, they announced, they came piling out that they wanted to ride, and I explained to Audrey, I said, Audrey, there's nothing for you to ride here that's like a horse you just get on and ride. They're both arena horses, both competitive horses. And so I didn't know what to do. She was a very powerful lady, and I'll get to that in a minute, in the music industry. So we ended up, I said, let's go eat. Well, up on Highway 100, and coming out of Nashville, there was a place called the Log Cabin that sold good country ham, nice place to eat. So we went in there to eat, and everybody piled in the cars, and we have dinner. And actually it was a late lunch, I guess. And we were right in the middle of Standing in the Shadows, breaking that, almost taking it. The first big hit record I think it went to number 5. I know it went top 5. And through dinner, she said, Hank, you and whatever that lady's name was, ex-lady wrestler, y'all go to the car. Mr. Kilroy and I have some business to talk over. And I assumed that she wanted to say, well, how's the record doing? How high is it going to go in the charts? And, it's really looking good. And, this type of conversation is what I was expecting. So they went on to the car, and Audrey Williams and I this is Hank's widow, were at the table alone, and she looked at me, and she was from Alabama and had a heavy accent. And being from Texas, I can understand Alabama accent, no problem. And she looked at me and she said, Kilroy, what is your problem? And I said, I beg your pardon, Audrey. And she said, I just want to know what your problem is, honey. And I said, well, I don't have a problem, Audrey. She said, yeah. She said, I think you do. She said, you've been traveling with us on the bus. And, you have not made one pass at me? Well, that scared me to death. I said, Lord, have mercy. Here I am talking to this lady, and she's very powerful with the company. I know that. And she's wanting to talk now about how come I'm not hitting on her. And I'm just a kid, to me, I think maybe I was 25, and she was up in her 40s for sure, which isn't an old lady, but, you know what I'm talking about. But I thought, this is getting ready to get serious. And I said, I better do a dance. I said, Audrey, I got to tell you something. You're a very, very attractive lady. And, I'm just out there trying to do a job on Hank Jr.'s records and just really working hard. But Lord have mercy, you are one good-looking lady. And I never thought about making a pass at you because, this is my shot to really make it in the record business. And she looked at me and she said, I can remember it just like it was recorded and in my mind. She looked at me and she said, well, I'll tell you one thing, honey. She said, honey, like honey, I can make it mighty damn rough on you, or we could have a mighty good things going. I said, a mighty good thing going? Wow. Well, when she said rough on you, honey, the Texan came out in me. And I said, well, I'll tell you one thing, honey. When it's getting too rough for everybody else, it's getting just right for me. And she slammed that chair back, threw it on the floor, and she stalked out of that restaurant. And that was on a Sunday afternoon late. And to tell you it didn't concern me a little bit, I would be lying to you, it did, but I slept it off. I said, it's just somebody talking. And next morning, I go into my office in Nashville, of course, and there's a stack of those pink slips. Remember the pink slips when you missed a call and they'd write them down, put on a little spindle there? There was a stack of them about that thick. And I looked at them, and it was my boss from New York, Frank Mancini. And I said, what does he want? So I called him immediately, of course, And I said, yeah, what's going on, Frank? And he said, well, Kilroy, Audrey called, and we're going to have to let you go. And I said, Frank, are you kidding? I said, you know, I'm busting my butt on Hank Jr. and the other records. And he said, I know you're doing a great job, but Kilroy, if I don't let you go, she's going to call Martin Asseter, who was president of the record company, and if he doesn't let you go, she'll call Bob O'Brien, who owned all of MGM. And what's most important, a national promotion man or the Hank Williams Sr. catalog of records, you know, and the Hank Williams movie, which is coming out, and our Hank Williams Jr. career, are a promotion man. I said, enough said, Frank. I'll cut my credit cards up, send them to you in the mail, I'm out of here. And she actually did make it pretty rough on me, but I didn't have a job to go to, but it only took about 30 minutes to find one because everyone knew it was a setup and that I had a good reputation. But that was the first time I met Junior was at that swimming pool. But from then on, boy, did he take off. Well, he had problems along the way. He had, gosh, of course, everybody knows that well, first of all, the record Standing in the Shadows says it all. He was in the shadow of a very famous man, and he was trying to get out of it and be Hank Williams himself. So he worked hard doing that, and then he was getting quite a bit of success. He was doing a lot of albums, and Standing in the Shadows, like I said, was a top 5 record. Then he had many more after that. And then, of course, came the accident. But, boy, some of the records that Hank had, I could beat songs like, and he either wrote the songs or perhaps on a few of them he had a co-writer. But I mean, songs like Family Tradition and Country Boy Can Survive and All My Rowdy Friends Are Coming Over Tonight and Whiskey Bent and Born to Boogie and what else? Dixie on My Mind, Living Proof, If the South Would Have Won, Look Out Boy, it'd been something. And My Name is Bocephus. He was just he was very prolific, and he wrote a lot, and he wrote good, and he became a star, as you know. But he also was an avid hunter, which brings to mind, quickly, I've got to interject this story. I'm a little out of sync on it, but when he was staying with me out at my little log house in Williamson County, there was a fox epidemic of rabid foxes. And they were biting kids at bus stops and what have you, and they were very dangerous. So the county put a bounty on them. And Tennessee had more fox than any state in the United States. And Williamson County had more fox than any county in Tennessee. So I would go shoot fox almost every night. So I said, let's go get a fox, Junior. Up there, going again. I got to call him Hank. So he said, okay. So we went out to this field and set up this call of a dying rabbit. And sure enough, turned the headlights on our heads, and there were half a dozen fox out there, and he shot one. And that was the mangiest, nastiest looking fox I'd ever seen in my life. But he was so proud of it. He had it mounted, no telling what it cost him. But he was always an avid hunter and avid outdoorsman. And he was hunting in Montana, and most of you may know the story, and he fell off the mountain and almost killed him. I mean, it really did. He was in terrible, terrible shape. Lost an eye. That's why the sunglasses. Tore his face all up. I mean, like shattered it. So he wears the beard, and he turned his whole image around after that fall. And surprisingly enough, he came back kicking and having a good time making big records. And Hank was pretty level-headed for the way he was raised. He was raised as the son of a legend. First of all, that's hard to overcome. Raised by a mother with one thing in mind, that would make him a superstar so she could live well and continue that high life. So there was a lot of pressure put on a guy at that age, and how he turned out as good as he did. It's amazing, but he did, and it's wonderful that he had such a successful career and still going today if he wants to. But I know that right now, Hank is at that point where he has his price so ridiculously high that, man, somebody's got to really want him to pay that much money for him. but he doesn't care because he doesn't really want to work anyway. He's enjoying fishing. He's enjoying hunting. He's an avid gun collector. He's a conservative guy politically and fits into my world immensely. So he's done wonderful with his life, still making some records and doing good. Another funny story, Hank was his contract had run out at MGM. By this time now, I had become president of Playboy Records, working for Hugh Hefner. Playboy Records was not associated with the magazine except through ownership by Hugh Hefner and Playboy Enterprises. But we had Mickey Gilley and signed him and what have you, so I had a big act with Gilley and Bobby Borchers, and now here comes Hank open for a new contract. So, of course, I'm hustling trying to get him signed. And everybody else, the bigger companies, and there were companies a lot bigger than Playboy, and they were going after him too. I said, well, I'll take him to Los Angeles. We'll take him to Los Angeles, and we'll just put on the wine and dine thing for him and see if I can get him to sign with Playboy. So Hank and I get on a plane, and we go to Los Angeles, check in Gene Autry's hotel there on Sunset Boulevard, which was called the Continental Hotel, and most people in the industry stayed there at that particular time and era. So the next day, we go out to the Playboy Mansion, and Hugh Hefner is one of the most cordial, hospitable hosts that you could ever expect to meet. You wouldn't think that at his stature in life, but we were having lunch there, and Hefner, Barbie Benton, and a few others from the corporate, and were there having lunch with Hank. And we had a nice lunch, nice visit, and Hefner was not a country music fan, but he knew Hank Williams. Of course, everybody knew that name. He was really helping me convince Hank to sign with Playboy Records. So as we were driving out after we had lunch, Hank looked at me and said, well, if I don't sign with you and Playboy Records, I guess that's the last time I'll be at the Playboy Mansion. And I said, you're probably right, Hank. And well, he didn't sign. He signed with Mike Curb, which he did not make a bad move. Curb had a bigger label than Playboy and did well with Hank. But I would love to have had him. Are you kidding? God, we had a ball. But he was, all kinds of pictures I want to put up that are pretty cool pictures, a few of them. Hank loved horses. Loved the Western way of life, and I was friends with the governor down in Texas from my hometown, and I called and I said, I'd like to bring Hank Williams Jr. out to your ranch in Rye, R-Y-E, Rye, Texas, just a community. Ironically enough, on that ranch, many years prior to that, my mother was born in a log cabin on that ranch. So we went out there, and we're riding horses and what have you, and I'm going to show you a picture right now that's kind of hard to believe, but I'll tell you it's true, and you know it's true. If you're looking left to right on this picture, it'll be Governor Bill Daniels. Smack dab in the middle on another white horse is Hank Williams Jr., and I'm going to guess Junior to be, there we go again, I'm going to guess Hank to be about 15, 16 years old at that time. And then here I am on his left, a young Eddie Kilroy. And that was at the governor's ranch, Bill Daniels, down in Texas. And Hank didn't have, this was before the accident years, but that was Hank Jr. Before the accident, Hank with no beard, no sunglasses, just a young Hank Williams. So we had a great time down there, and we did a lot of good things. And Hank Jr. remains a good friend and incredibly talented guy that I respect a lot. Another picture, I think I know everybody in this picture, was taken at the studio in late 80s, early 90s, I would say. Producer Jimmy Bowen is to the far left in the picture. Trying to think who's next. It's not me. Oh, it must be Merle Kilgore, maybe. Then Hank Jr. No, then me, yeah, with a cigarette hanging out of my mouth and a lot of hair. and then Hank Jr. I think I got it right. I think I got it in order. You can see the picture and figure it out yourselves. But Hank and I went back a long way. I mean, back into the 60s. And still, I have so much respect for his talent and so much respect for the things he's accomplished, overcoming a strange relationship with his mother and a strange upbringing in his formative years, simply because it was he was pushed so hard to go be a star. Hank, go be a star. Hank, go be a star. Hank, go out and knock them dead tonight. You know, he didn't get to play with the young guys and go out and have BB gun wars or do whatever we did when we were young. He was out on one mission, pursuing stardom, mostly at the encouragement of his mother, Audrey. Okay, so that's just about all I know of Hank, other than some of the things he accomplished. You know, the 53 nominations from the Country Music Association. He's in the Country Music Hall of Fame, of course. He has to be there. All total, I think he had 18 awards for Best Vocalist, so forth. By the way, that accident happened back in when he fell off the mountain in 1975. I'm pretty sure that's when that accident happened. He overcame that. He was he was arrested. I never did talk to him about this, and I wouldn't quiz him about it. But back in early 2000s, 2005, 6, 7, somewhere in there, he was charged with assault on a waitress or something. They may claim that she did, that he assaulted her. I don't know. Knowing Hank as I know Hank, I don't see him assaulting any woman. Okay, it just was not necessarily in his DNA. I don't believe that. Charges were dropped for lack of evidence, of course. Gosh, he did so much. Back in '64, I was talking about Standing in the Shadows. You know, that was his first album, came out of his first album, that Standing in the Shadows single. You believe through the years he had 54 studio albums. That's a lot of albums. You know, had 2 live albums, 25 compilation albums where he's in with some other artists, you know, on an album. That's a lot of albums, a lot of recording. Sold 70 million albums. 70 million albums, that's a lot of albums. And 5 times platinum. I mean, tell me Hank Williams Jr. did not make a mark. Superstar to this day, Hank Williams Jr. Well, listen, this is Kilroy. I want to tell you one more thing. Before I get out of here, I want to talk to you about Total Feeds. They're our sponsor. And I believe in our sponsor, Total Feeds. Total Equine for horses. Our horses have been on it since it first hit the market, I'm going to say 16, 17 years ago. I'm not sure. I'd have to do some thinking on that, but our horses have just blossomed on Total Equine. Total Bull. Most of a lot of the bulls you see on the PBR and in the PRCA events are on Total Bull because it creates muscle and strength. Total Goat, oh man, the goats thrive on it. And they've got Total Canine. We feed our dogs Total Canine. They look good. They love it. And also Total People. You get on Total People and you'll feel good. Dr. Harry Anderson spent a lot of time formulating all of these different products. So go to the website, totalfeeds.com. Look it over. I think you're going to like what you see. In the meantime, this is Kilroy saying, gosh, dog, I've had a good time telling Hank Jr. stories. We're going to be doing another series soon. So if you have something that's specific you'd like to hear about, if I can bring that to you, I will. I don't go online and look for stuff because I spent so many years in Nashville. I know most of this by heart, personally, without going online to Wikipedia or whatever and look at things up. So, oh, by the way, if I ever make a mistake, feel free to correct me. Just jump my butt and say, Kilroy, that was not right. Check me on that, okay? Because I'm doing this from my memory, whatever it is, going back, oh my gosh, 64 with Junior? That's like a lifetime ago. I'm surprised I even still remember. Anyway, God bless each and every one of you. Thank you for being with me. take you on the next one.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Kilroy's Outlaws and Legends Behind the Music. If you have any thoughts or questions about the content, email them. Kilroy Outlaws and Legends, all one word, at yahoo.com. That's Kilroy, no S, Outlaws and Legends, all one word, at yahoo.com. And don't forget to subscribe. Third-party use of any part of this podcast without the expressed consent of Eddie Kilroy is prohibited. The Kilroy's Outlaws and Legends Behind the Music podcast is a production of Eddie Kilroy.